At 80 years old, Michael Douglas is finally done staying quiet about the parts of his life he kept locked away. For years, the world only saw the glamorous side, the Hollywood red carpets, the picture-perfect smiles, the interviews that made everything look flawless. But behind that polished image, Michael says he was battling pressure, fear, and emotional struggles that no one ever saw. Loving Catherine Zeta-Jones wasn't just a beautiful romance, it came with storms he never imagined he'd have to face. The world crowned them Hollywood royalty, but the truth he's now revealing turns everything upside down. It makes people ask a question no one dared to whisper back then. How much pain can hide inside a marriage that everyone swore was perfect? Michael admits those cracks didn't show up years later. They were there right from the start, burned deep into his memory. He says everything shifted for him back in 1998, long before the public ever noticed. At 80 years old, Michael Douglas is finally done staying quiet about the parts of his life he kept locked away. For years, the world only saw the glamorous side, the Hollywood red carpets, the picture-perfect smiles, the interviews that made everything look flawless. But behind that polished image, Michael says he was battling pressure, fear, and emotional struggles that no one ever saw. Loving Catherine Zeta-Jones wasn't just a beautiful romance, it came with storms he never imagined he'd have to face. The world crowned them Hollywood royalty, but the truth he's now revealing turns everything upside down. It makes people ask a question no one dared to whisper back then. How much pain can hide inside a marriage that everyone swore was perfect? Michael admits those cracks didn't show up years later. They were there right from the start, burned deep into his memory. He says everything shifted for him back in 1998, long before the public ever noticed. At that time, he first saw Catherine Zeta-Jones on screen in The Mask of Zorro while he was recovering from back surgery, trying to turn his life around after struggling with unhealthy habits and a lifestyle that had quietly taken over his past decade. At 54, Michael wasn't just a superstar. He was a man staring down midlife with trophies on the shelf, but pain he couldn't shake. The divorce headlines, the weight of being Kirk Douglas's son, and the pressure of fame had left him drained, even if success never stopped calling. He knew everything about fame, but peace always slipped through his fingers, and when Catherine appeared on that screen, something inside him shifted, something powerful that he couldn't ignore. She was 29, glowing, confident, and full of that spark everyone noticed the second she walked into a room. Everything Michael felt slipping away with age, Catherine seemed to have in endless supply: energy, mystery, and power. When they finally crossed paths at the Deauville Film Festival in France, Michael showed up with his signature charm on the outside, but a storm of doubt underneath. He tried to impress her, talking big and hiding his nerves behind that cool movie star confidence. Then came the line he thought would win her over: "I will be the father of your children." It was meant to sound smooth, playful, unforgettable, but it didn't hit the way he hoped. Catherine shut it down politely but firmly, leaving Michael standing there with a sting of embarrassment he hadn't felt in years. That moment, it became the very first crack in the perfect story he had imagined for himself. It was a wake-up call. Catherine wasn't someone who could be swayed by fame or charm alone, and Michael, being who he was, wasn't the kind of man to give up easily, especially when something hit him that hard. When Catherine left to film Entrapment in Scotland, he went all in, sending a bouquet of roses straight to her hotel, a bold move that showed he wasn't backing down quietly. Catherine kept that card from the flowers for over 20 years, a quiet reminder of the moment she started seeing him differently, not just as another Hollywood star, but a man truly fighting for another shot at love and a new chapter in life. By December 1999, they were engaged. Just 8 months later, in August 2000, their son Dylan was born. And by November, the couple stood side by side at the Plaza Hotel in New York, surrounded by legends like Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg, and Anthony Hopkins, celebrating a love that defied every expectation. It looked like a fairy tale come to life, Catherine shining in her stunning David Emanuel gown, their baby carried down the aisle, and Hollywood royalty filling the room. Cameras flashed, smiles glowed, and the world saw nothing but pure destiny, glamour, and perfection. But behind that dazzling picture, Michael felt something else quietly creeping in, a strange unease that he couldn't shake even on the happiest day of his life. Catherine's career didn't just rise, it exploded. In 2003, she won an Oscar while expecting their daughter, Curtis, and the world couldn't get enough of her. Every move she made turned to gold. She was unstoppable, radiant, completely in her element. Michael was proud, deeply proud, but under that pride hid a quiet fear he rarely spoke about. He tried to keep up with the pace, to stay sharp and vibrant, but time was already whispering in his ear, and he wasn't ready to hear it. From the outside, those early years looked golden. Love, success, and red carpets everywhere. They had milestones stacking up like trophies, but underneath all that sparkle, something fragile was forming. Michael would later admit that even in their brightest moments, he could feel a shadow hanging in the distance, one that refused to fade. He worried about the future, about what would happen when he couldn't keep up anymore. Would he become too tired, too worn down for the woman he adored so much? That fear followed him quietly for years, no matter how hard he tried to ignore it. Then came 2010, the year everything shifted. Catherine was 41, powerful, confident, and ruling Hollywood like few ever had. Michael was 66, carrying the weight of decades filled with surgeries, stress, past struggles, and the reality of time pressing harder every year. He tried to look unshakable, still playing the strong, fearless man the world knew, but behind the scenes, the distance between them was growing wider with every season that passed. And then came the moment that turned their world upside down. A quiet room, a doctor's voice, the words "Stage 4 throat cancer." Just one sentence and everything shattered. Overnight, their perfect world collapsed. Michael went from being in full control of his life to wondering if he'd even make it to the next month. And his first thought wasn't about himself, it was about his children, about the fear of leaving them too soon, and about Catherine having to hold the family together on her own. But fear doesn't make illness easier, and reality hit hard. The tumor sat at the base of his thumb, making every word, every breath, every meal a battle. The treatments, rounds of chemotherapy and radiation, were harsh and draining, stripping away his strength little by little. For Catherine, the shift was terrifying. That 25-year age gap the tabloids once teased about suddenly felt heartbreakingly real. She watched the man she loved fade into someone fragile and weak, a version of Michael she barely recognized. Nights turned long and heavy. She slept in chairs beside his hospital bed.
There was no space for Catherine to fall apart, not while Michael was fighting for his life, not with the whole world watching every single move they made. Hollywood showed her as the perfect, loyal wife, always smiling by his side, always strong. But behind closed doors, no one saw the truth. The nights she broke down quietly in the bathroom so Michael wouldn't hear her cry. No one saw the guilt eating away at her, the fear that maybe she wasn't strong enough, or the exhaustion that was stealing her peace bit by bit. Michael needed her, and she gave him everything she had. But the emotional cost kept building, and deep down, she knew it couldn't go on forever. When Michael finally entered remission in early 2011, the world erupted with joy. He proudly announced on national television that he was cancer-free, and everyone celebrated the victory. But right then, Catherine finally reached her breaking point. All the months of fear, stress, and bottled-up emotions came crashing down. That spring, she sought treatment for bipolar II disorder, opening up about something she had tried to hide even from herself. She was completely drained, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And as Michael slowly regained his strength, he had to face a heartbreaking truth. His illness hadn't only changed him, it had taken something from Catherine too, something she might never fully recover from. While the public cheered for their miracle comeback, behind the cameras, their marriage was quietly bending under the weight of everything they had been through. The sacrifices, the pain, and the fears they didn't know how to speak out loud. By 2012, the image of their perfect marriage had completely cracked. Even as fans kept holding on to the fairy tale they wanted to believe, the truth was already unraveling behind the scenes. Catherine Zeta-Jones checked into treatment for bipolar II disorder, a part of her reality she had kept hidden for years. She was completely drained after months of being Michael's emotional anchor through his health battle, holding the family together when everything around them felt like it was falling apart. She was tired of living in survival mode, days filled with routines instead of laughter, strength instead of vulnerability, duty instead of peace. While Catherine tried to regain balance, Michael was quietly trying to rebuild something inside himself too. Not just his confidence as an actor or public figure, but his sense of worth as a husband, one who couldn't stop wondering if he'd already caused her more pain than she ever deserved. They were both healing, but not together. It was like two people standing on opposite ends of a broken bridge, each holding wounds the other couldn't carry anymore. The age gap that once felt irrelevant suddenly became impossible to ignore within their own walls. Catherine was in her early 40s, still ambitious, still hungry to create, to move, to live fully again. After years of stepping back, she wanted momentum, excitement, and purpose. Meanwhile, Michael, now in his late 60s, could feel time catching up to him in ways he couldn't hide anymore. His energy faded quicker, his body felt heavier, and that quiet truth started to weigh on him. Michael couldn't shake the fear that Catherine no longer saw him as her equal, but as a responsibility she never asked for. By 2013, the emotional distance between them had grown cold and silent, like a wall neither of them knew how to break through. And in August of that year, after nearly 13 years of marriage, they quietly separated. No fights, no public chaos, just two people finally admitting what had been unspoken for too long. Catherine left with their children, needing space, air, and time to find herself again, to reclaim the pieces she had lost during years of caregiving and emotional strain. Michael stayed behind in New York, alone for the first time in decades, surrounded by memories of a life that once felt rich and full, but now echoed with emptiness. Shortly after the separation made headlines, Michael returned to the Deauville Film Festival, the very same place where it had all begun back in 1998. But this time, the energy was different. Those who saw him said he looked thinner, older, quieter, like being there only reminded him of how far he'd drifted from the man he once was. In interviews, he stayed diplomatic, simply saying, "We're working things out,"
choosing calm words over raw honesty. But people close to him knew the truth. He was grieving deeply. It wasn't the kind of grief that came from anger or loss of love. It was the quiet heartbreak of realizing a dream had slipped away. Catherine played her part too, walking red carpets, smiling for cameras, doing interviews that painted a picture of control and peace. Catherine had put her entire career on hold for years, passing on major roles, delaying her dreams, and reshaping her whole life because Michael needed her. And when it all came crashing down, she was left staring at herself in the mirror, wondering who she had become in the process. Now separated, she was caught between the love she still felt and the emotional scars she couldn't keep ignoring. By early 2014, the world was stunned to see them back together at public events, standing side by side again, smiling softly for the cameras. They looked calm, polite, maybe even fragile. Fans cheered, believing in a full-blown reunion, but those close to them weren't convinced. What brought them back together wasn't some magical healing moment. It was their children, their shared past, and a powerful wish not to completely break the family they had built over the years. They eventually moved back into the same home, but Michael later admitted the truth. Behind closed doors, they were different people now. They had been reshaped by illness, pressure, and the emotional weight of everything they had survived. The marriage endured, yes, but it did so quietly, held together by effort, not ease. Silence started filling the spaces where open honesty once lived, and as the years went on, the age began to show. Age couldn't be hidden anymore, and neither could the distance between them. Still, Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones kept trying to rebuild a version of their life that already carried deep cracks. It was the kind of public display Hollywood knows all too well. The smiles, the red carpet moments, the affectionate gestures for the cameras. But behind those polished photos, the truth Michael finally revealed at 80 was much heavier than anyone imagined. Their reunion.
Michael's body changed fast after his long health battle. By 2020, even fans began to notice. He moved slower, spoke softer, and carried a kind of quiet tiredness that hadn't been there before. Catherine, still full of energy at 51, found herself slowly slipping back into the caretaker role she thought she had left behind. Only this time, there wasn't a crisis pushing her, just the familiar rhythm of sacrifice she could no longer justify. She wanted more from life now: to travel, work freely, take on new projects, play golf, and live the active, fulfilling life she had always imagined for her 50s. But Michael couldn't keep up anymore. He stayed home, weighed down by health worries, world chaos, and the haunting thought that maybe the world was moving on without him. The gap between their lives grew wider, even when they shared the same house. According to those close to them, Catherine's frustration didn't erupt. It simply simmered. She had already sacrificed her dreams once, and now she felt torn between loyalty and quiet resentment. Whispers started to spread. Talk of private separations, discreet financial arrangements, and a marriage held together more by habit than passion. They began selling their properties. The home in Bermuda went first, followed by listings in New York and Majorca. Finally, Michael admitted in private what he had spent years avoiding: that the age gap, once romanticized as part of their love story, had slowly turned into the biggest struggle in their marriage. He began to see himself the way Catherine might: slower, more fragile, and uncertain when it came to his health. And Catherine, even with all the love she still had for him, couldn't ignore the quiet truth anymore. Her own happiness was fading away. "I became her responsibility, not my partner," Michael confided to a close friend. Those words hit hard. The woman he adored was slowly losing herself while caring for him, and he couldn't do a thing to stop it. At 80, Michael Douglas stopped pretending.
For decades, he had guarded the story the world wanted to see, the one filled with glamour, red carpets, luxury, and picture-perfect smiles. But aging has a way of cutting through illusions, and Michael could no longer hide from the truth that had been haunting him for years. He spoke about it not with anger, but with quiet exhaustion. Loving Catherine Zeta-Jones had been both the greatest blessing of his life and the hardest fight he had ever faced. He adored her completely, yet deep down, he feared he had become the very reason for her sadness. Friends close to him confirmed what he rarely said aloud. He carried a heavy sense of guilt over the 25-year age gap that shaped every part of their story. Guilt that his illness had taken away some of her freedom and energy. Guilt that her dreams had been delayed, reshaped, or even put aside to care for him when his strength faded. And guilt that Catherine, a woman known for her fire, ambition, and incredible talent, had been forced into the role of caretaker far too often. Behind the scenes, their private world was more fragile than ever. Catherine, now 55, stood at a crossroads, torn between the career she wanted to reclaim, the adventures she still dreamed of, and the husband she loved deeply but could no longer carry on her shoulders forever. Michael, fully aware of his own limits, began quietly preparing himself for the possibility that one day she might finally need to step away. Separated once more, Catherine found herself trying to make peace with two truths: the love that still lived in her heart and the emotional weight she could no longer deny. By early 2014, the couple started appearing together again at public events, standing close but with a kind of cautious distance. Their smiles were polite, their gestures gentle, almost fragile. Fans cheered what looked like a grand reunion, but those who really knew them weren't fooled. What pulled them back together wasn't a miracle fix. It was their children, their shared memories, and a deep determination to protect the family they had built. They moved back into the same home, but Michael later admitted the truth. They didn't return as the same people they once were. They came back changed, reshaped by years of illness, pressure, and emotional sacrifice. Yes, the marriage survived, but it did so quietly, held together by effort instead of ease. The silence between them grew heavier, filling the spaces where open honesty used to live. And as time went on, the years began to show. The glamour faded, and age could no longer be disguised. They celebrated anniversaries, walked the red carpets, and shared loving posts online, the kind of gestures Hollywood understands all too well. But behind those glossy smiles and picture-perfect moments, the truth that Michael finally admitted at 80 was far heavier than any photo could show. Their reunion hadn't truly healed the wounds, it had only hidden them. Beneath the surface was a marriage that still existed, but no longer thrived. Michael had aged quickly after his cancer battle, and by 2020, even fans could see the difference. He moved slower, spoke softer, and seemed more fragile than before. Catherine, still glowing with energy at 51, found herself back in that familiar role of caretaker, but this time there was no health emergency to justify it. She wanted more from life. She wanted to work again, take on exciting projects, travel the world, play golf, and fully embrace the energy she'd always pictured for her 50s. But Michael couldn't keep up anymore. He stayed home more often, weighed down by worries, by the state of the world, and by a quiet fear that he was slowly fading into the background. The emotional distance between them grew, even when they were under the same roof. And according to people close to them, Catherine's frustration didn't come out in bursts. It built up slowly, layer by layer. She had already put her dreams on hold once, and now she felt stuck between loyalty and quiet resentment. Whispers started to grow louder, talk of private separations, discreet financial arrangements, and a relationship that seemed to be held together more by history than by passion. They began selling their homes, the The one in Bermuda went first, followed by properties in New York and Majorca. To those around them, each sale felt symbolic, like another piece of the life they once built together quietly slipping away. Michael began to see himself through Catherine's eyes, slower, more fragile and unpredictable when it came to his health. And Catherine, though her love for him never faded, could no longer ignore the quiet truth. Her own happiness was slipping away. "I became her responsibility, not her partner," Michael once admitted to a close friend. That realization hit him like a wave. The woman he adored was losing herself while caring for him, and he didn't know how to stop it. By the time he turned 80, Michael Douglas stopped hiding behind the story the world had wanted to see for decades. He had always protected the image, the glamour, the luxury, the red carpets, the perfect smiles. But aging has a way of stripping away illusions, leaving only what's real. And when Michael finally faced that truth, it wasn't with anger, it was with quiet exhaustion. Loving Catherine Zeta-Jones had been the greatest joy of his life, and also the hardest emotional battle he'd ever fought. He adored her completely, but feared that over time he had become the reason for her fading happiness. Friends close to him confirmed what he rarely said out loud, that he carried a deep sense of guilt. Guilt over the 25-year age gap that had shaped their entire relationship. Guilt that his illness had taken away parts of her youth. Guilt that her dreams had been delayed, reshaped, or even put aside to care for him when his strength failed. And guilt, too, that a woman known for her fire, talent, and ambition had been pushed into the caretaker role far too often. Even as they celebrated anniversaries and posted loving tributes through 2023 and 2024, the truth behind closed doors remained delicate and uncertain. Catherine, now 55, stood at a crossroads, torn between the career she wanted to revive, the world she still longed to experience, and the husband she deeply loved but could no longer carry forever. Their story is one of love, endurance, and heartbreak. Proof that even the most glamorous lives can hide silent battles. If you found this story moving, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more real Hollywood stories that reveal the truth behind the spotlight.